Okay, so for today's lesson, we'll be doing Module 1, Lesson 4. The objective for this lesson is to understand the meaning of the unknown as the size of the group in division. As per usual, you'll need your whiteboard, dry erase marker, and dry eraser. Let's start off with our vocabulary. First term that we are learning today is division. Division is the splitting into equal groups or parts, or fair sharing. So as you can see here, we have 6 witches' hats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to divide them or split them into equal groups. So I put 1 hat in each group until I ran out of hats, and I ended up with 3 hats in each group, and there's 2 groups altogether. So how that looks for our equation is 6 hats divided into 2 groups, 1, 2, equals 3 hats per group. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So 6, the number is the number we start with, which is our total number of hats. 2 is the number of groups. And 3 is the size of each group. Next, for our vocabulary is unknown. Unknown is the variable to be solved. So we have the same picture as before. We have our 2 groups with 3 hats in each group. So the total number of hats is the 6. The number of groups is 2. And the unknown, okay, that's the answer that we're looking for. It's the variable to be solved. It's what we don't know yet. But once we take the 6 hats and put them into 2 groups evenly, we end up finding out that the size of the group is 3. So we know 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Okay, so we're going to talk about division as fair sharing, okay, and we're going to relate the answer to the unknown factor. We have 18 markers. I'm going to go ahead and do something that I like to do to help myself keep track of numbers. I'm going to circle that number. 18 markers. I split them between Mr. Williamson and myself. So Mr. Williamson and myself, that's 2 of us. So I'm just going to put a 2 right there. I know there's 2 of us. So what is the number of groups? What is the size of the group? Well, the number of groups I just said is 2 because there's 2 of us and we're splitting the markers between 2 of us. So down here at the bottom, I have a circle for Mr. Williamson and a circle for me. My total is 18 markers. My total is 18 markers. My number of groups is 2. 1 for me and one group for me and 1 group for Mr. Williamson. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 18 markers and I'm going to split them up 1 at a time until I get to 18. So watch how I do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, I've used all 18 markers. So now I want to find out the size of the group. Okay, so the size of the group is going to be how many markers each of us get. Let's go ahead and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the size of the group is 9. Now what I like to do is double check my work to make sure that I didn't mess anything up. To do division, it has to be fair. It has to be a fair share. So I need to make sure that both groups have the same number. So I'm going to double check by counting my other group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I have 9 markers. Mr. Williamson has 9 markers. So go ahead and we're going to have to remember this information here as we move on. Total number of markers is 18. The groups, or the number of groups, is 2, Mr. Williamson and myself. And the size of each group is 9. So if we split the markers evenly or fairly, we each get 9 markers. Let's write a number sentence to show our work. What is the total number of markers? We said the total number of markers, which is how many we started with, was 18. We divided our markers into how many equal groups? 2 equal groups. And I know this is not counters, it's markers. 2 equal groups. Okay. So let's see how we can use those 2 numbers to create our equation. 18 markers, our total, divided into 2 groups, okay? So if 18 is our total and 2 represents our equal groups, what does our unknown factor represent? So this equals our unknown. So unknown, remember, is essentially what we don't know. And we don't know, or we didn't know until we solved it, the answer to this equation. But we did figure out that once we took the 18 markers and we broke them into 2 groups, we ended up with 9 markers per group. And we said that that unknown factor, because we didn't know it, represents the size of our group. Okay? The size of the group is how many are in each group, and there are 9 markers in each group. So Mr. Williamson gave me 9 markers. Now suppose Mr. Williamson had 15 markers and shared them fairly with 3 teachers. What are we trying to find? The number of groups or the size of the group? So we know that the total is 15 markers. He has 15 markers altogether. Now he's going to share them with 3 teachers. Well, if he's sharing them with 3 people, then we know we're going to end up with 1, 2, 3 different teachers, which is the same as 3 different groups. So we know that the number of groups equals 3. This number of groups equals 3. Well, then what is our unknown? What is the thing that we do not know yet? We do not know the size of the group. We know how many markers we're starting with. We know how many groups we have to split them in between, but we don't know yet how many markers each teacher will get. So let's divide those 15 markers into 3 equal groups by giving 1 to teacher 1, 1 to teacher 2, 1 to teacher 3, and then you'll start over and give another 1 to teacher 1, another marker to teacher 2, another marker to teacher 3, and you're going to keep going one at a time until you fairly share all 15 markers. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'm going to give you a moment to put those 3 circles on your whiteboard, 3 big circles, and then you're going to count to 15. So you're going to put 1, tally or one marker in each group, one at a time until you get to 15. Go ahead and do that now, and then hold it up to your camera so I can go ahead and help you and check your work. Okay, I'm seeing some great group pictures right now. What I want everyone to do is, if you have your 3 circles drawn already, go ahead and count how many are in one circle and just write that number on your board. And then make sure you check your work. Count how many in each circle, because it should be the same number. Okay, so let's go ahead and compare your answers to mine. We have 15 markers total, and we are splitting them into 3 equal groups. So let's go ahead and do that, 1 marker at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now we've given away all 15 markers. We've shared them equally between the 3 groups or the 3 teachers. Now our next job was to count how many markers go to each teacher. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just going to jot that down. Now I'm going to check my work, because if I shared them equally or fairly, all of my groups should have 5 markers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. All of my groups have 5 markers. So I know that each teacher should get 5 markers, or the size of my group is 5. Let's write a number sentence to show our work. What is our total number of, and we're not using counters, we're using markers, right? So our total number of markers was 15. That's how many we started with. We divided our markers into how many equal groups? Well, there were 3 teachers, so we divided it into 3 groups. Go ahead on your whiteboard and write a division equation for this example. So I want it to be something like blank divided by blank equals question mark. Because the answer right now is our unknown. That's what we had to figure out. So the first number is our total divided by the groups. Go ahead and write that equation and hold it up to the screen. I'm seeing a lot of great equations. Now, here is one hint I want to give you. for division. In division, the biggest number will always go first, always, because we can't take 3 of something and break it into 15 groups because there's only 3. We are always taking the biggest number and splitting it into groups. So 15 is our big number, or our total. So we have 15 divided by 3 equals question mark, or equals our unknown. Okay, so if 15 is our total and 3 represents our equal groups, what does our unknown factor represent? Go ahead and erase your question mark and put in your answer there. So you have 15 divided by 3, and if that's not what you had, go ahead and change it so it's correct. And then put in the answer. We had 15 markers. We broke it into 3 groups. How many ended up in each group? That'll be our answer. Go ahead and write that and hold it up. Okay, so we had 15 markers divided by 3 groups equaled 5 markers per group. So what did our unknown factor represent? Our unknown factor, or what we did not know until we solved it, was the size of the group. Okay, we did not know how many markers each teacher was going to get until we divided it. So Mr. Williamson gave me 5 markers. Okay, now let's analyze a picture to write a division sentence. This is how Diana arranges her star stickers. What does 12 represent in the picture? Okay, so we have 3 options. 12 either represents the total, the number of groups, or the size of each group. So I want you to pick one of those 3. Write that on your board and hold it up. Is 12 the total number of stars? Is 12 the number of groups that the stars are broken into? Or is 12 the size of each group, or how many stars are in each group? The total. 12 is the total. If you count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stars all together. So 12 represents the total. What does the 3 represent in this picture? So we have 2 options left. Either 3 is the number of groups that we have, or 3 is the size of the group. So think about your answer, and then we're going to do a raise of hand. Raise your hand if you think that 3 is the number of groups. Hands down. Raise your hand if you think that 3 is the size of the group. Hands down. Well, if we go ahead and we start circling, there's 1 group of stars, 2 groups of stars, 3 groups of stars. So the number of groups is 3. Well, then that means there's only one thing left. So right now, the size is our unknown. The next question is, what does the 4 represent in the picture? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 stars in that group. If we did division correctly, all of the groups should have the same size. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, what does the 4 represent? The size of each group. Okay, so we have 12 stars total. They're broken into 3 groups, and the size of each of those groups is 4. So if we were looking at this as a division sentence, we would have 12 divided by 3 equals 4. Okay, so next up, we're going to be moving to our Kami homework in your Google Classroom. For today, you will see your homework. Go ahead and open that up. You're going to be completing 1 through 9, which is the whole first page. So it's showing you pictures, and they've grouped or divided those objects into groups, and you have to figure out the size of the group for some of them. For some of them, you have to figure out how many groups there are. And then it also wants you to do an equation, okay? So for example, let's do this chicken one down here, okay? First it says blank chickens are divided into blank equal groups. Well, we know with division, the total always comes first. So I know there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chickens total. And they're divided into 1, 2, 3 equal groups. There are blank chickens in each group. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Well, there are 3 chickens in each group. So 9 chickens divided into 3 groups equals 3 chickens per group. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You're just using the picture to figure out the total, the number of groups, and the size of the group, and filling in those blanks, okay? Remember, if you need to mute the tab or close the call while you are working, you may do so. If you have any questions, make sure you stay here and ask them.